entered a village where a woman whose name was Martha welcomed him. She had a sister named Mary, who sat beside the Lord at his feet, listening to him speak. Martha, burdened with much serving, came to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me by myself to do the serving? Tell her to help me. The Lord said to her in reply, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and worried about many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken from her. The Gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. In weeks past, we have heard how Jesus went around the villages of Galilee, preaching and entering into the homes of the people, and also how he sent his disciples to do the same. This week, the readings place ourselves on the side of those who see Jesus passing by. And we have two readings that help us to understand this mystery. First of all, in the book of Genesis, we have an event that was and it is common in some cultures. We see some men walking in the middle of the desert, and Abraham, who sees them and calls them and invites them into his tent. Hospitality, a sacred, non-written law in so many cultures and societies, especially the ancient ones, and certainly those of the Bedouin like Abraham. In a society where you don't have social support, when you go out of your family or your tribe or your town, and if you were traveling, you risk very much. And so it was a kind of sacred law, non-written law, that if you saw someone passing by, a traveler, you welcome him or her to protect that person. It was a sacred duty. And what happens here is Abraham sees these three men coming, and he immediately offers his tent and everything he has. He prepares even a banquet for them. He's a good guest. But what is interesting, a good host, sorry. But what is interesting here is that he immediately sees in these men not only men, but a visit from God. He calls them sir. He recognizes in these men in need not only human beings, but God coming to him. And he gives them and treats them as God himself. Now, what is even more interesting and beautiful, at the end of the pericope of the text, we realize that even if Abraham has given everything, has been very generous with these men, at the end, those who give the true gift are them. They are the ones giving the real gift to Abraham, because they tell him, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah will then have a son. He's waiting for so long for this son that was promised to him by God. And now, when he welcomes some persons in need and gives them generously, in response to this generosity is when God announces him that the so longed son is coming. In the gospel, we have something very similar. Jesus is going preaching in the villages and comes to the home of the family that he loves, Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. And we see here how Martha and Mary, share between them the two activities that we have seen in Abraham. One of them take the burden of preparing and serving, and the other one to talk to the guest, to listen to the guest. But at the end, the lesson is the same. Jesus tells to Martha, who is complaining because her sister left her alone, tell her, Mary has chosen the better part. Nobody will take that away from her. So, like telling her, it's very nice that you are doing all this for me, but you don't realize that the true gift is myself. You don't realize that the important part is not what you do for me, but what I am doing for you. And that is exactly what happens with Abraham and these three men. Now, what this teaches us about God and His presence and is His way of doing and acting in our lives. First of all, almost always He shows at our doorsteps as someone in need, someone who seems to be asking something from us. And that is really very wise, because only when we are able to open our hearts are we also able to welcome a real gift. So you see, Jesus comes as someone in need, so much that Martha immediately starts, preparing things and serving because she sees this need. But she doesn't realize that she is actually the one who will receive. Again, in our lives, very often, think of it, God comes and knocks to the door of our lives in the form of people in need, events that require from us generosity, openness. When we are willing to do what Abraham did and Mary, we realize that at the end, even if we thought that we were giving, we discover that we actually are the ones on the receiving end. Some years ago, I was in San Antonio, and I was appointed chaplain for 2 hospitals. And I remember almost every day that it was my shift, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, they call you for, and you can imagine, if you have been awakened in the middle of the night, it's not a great joy, but I always came back from that hospital feeling that I was the one blessed. Always, always, always. At the beginning, it seemed that I was the one giving my time, At the end, it was not true. I was the one getting a lot more than what I was giving. And I think that when we have a certain sensitivity, a certain, openness, we realize that. It's hard to welcome, especially, imagine Abraham. You don't know who is coming through the desert to your tent, Could be anyone. Could be someone that wants to, rob you. It's very easily and even excusable if you want, to close your tent and but he opened, and not only opened his tent, but offered the beds that he had. And just because that, he listened to the confirmation of the promise. How many opportunities maybe we miss of God doing great things in us because we close our hearts, our lives, our homes. And so this is an invitation to be always opening and always knowing that we get more than we give. Very often we have this image of God, the one asking. God asks me, God asks me. And God never asks us for the sake of having something from us. If He asks anything, is to give more, to make room for what He is giving us. There is a beautiful story of a Russian writer, of this man, Crispin, who is a showmaker, repairer. And he has his small shop in a basement, a little window on the top, and he sees only the feet of the people passing by, but he knows the steps of everyone, being the showmaker of the town. And one day, in a dream, he dreams that Jesus tells him, Crispin, I am coming to visit you tomorrow. So you can imagine he rises very early and cleans everything, prepares some very good food as best as he can, and he starts working, waiting for Jesus to come. At some point, there comes a poor woman with her child and begging, and so he invites her to the shop, feeds her, and gives some clothes. Then later, an old man, and later another person asking, and he goes to bed without seeing Jesus. No? That very night, he dreams again, and Jesus appears to him and tells him, Crispin, thank you, because I came, and you welcomed me, you feed me, you gave me clothes. No? Jesus was in these people who came to him, and he was able to recognize him, even if he really wasn't not seeing him physically. And I think that is a beautiful story that is actually what the readings of today are telling us. Don't leave any opportunity of welcoming Jesus in your life, welcoming those that are in need, that are asking because God wants to give you even